Welcome to In Focus, where we bring you the most pressing global developments, analyzing their broader implications with top experts from all around the world. Today we examine the growing tension in the Middle East, with Israel's military escalation in Lebanon marked by the wounding of UN peacekeepers. We also discuss NATO's reaffirmation of Ukraine's path to membership, its plans to strengthen the alliance, and the tight US presidential race. Stay with us for more analysis on In Focus. Recent violence in southern Lebanon, marked by the wounding of UN peacekeepers, intensifies tensions amid Israeli aggression. How will this impact ongoing peace efforts and regional stability? 40 nations contributing to the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon have condemned recent Israeli attacks on UNIFIL and called for a thorough investigation. At least 5 peacekeepers were injured as violence escalated following Israel's ground invasion against Hezbollah. Politico reported that the countries stressed the importance of UNIFIL's role in maintaining stability and urged all parties to ensure the safety of peacekeepers. Spain, France and Italy had already denounced the attacks, with US President Joe Biden also urging Israel to hold the targeting of UN personnel. Despite threats, UNIFIL remains committed to its mission of peace and mediation in the region. And to explore these issues, we are joined by Mr. Rabia El-Hobar, a Lebanese writer and journalist from Beirut. Welcome, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us and to know more about what's going on in our show today.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
sir.
evening.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, in light of recent Israeli attacks
Good afternoon.
In light of Israeli and the recent, of course, Israeli attacks on UN peacekeepers and the growing, escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah and Hamas, what are the potential risks of a wider regional conflict erupting, and how might this impact Lebanon's stability at this point?
Yes, good evening. Good evening from Beirut. Good evening from Lebanon, a country that is under a big war. Lebanon is now suffering from an Israeli war, and what is going on recently is an attack against the UNIFIL peacekeeping forces in the south of Lebanon. Of course, this will impact in one way or another the mission of the peacekeeping troops in the south of Lebanon, and it will escalate the situation. Let me remind you that I'm not a journalist, I'm a political science teacher.
Sorry, sir, very sorry, sir.
It's okay. It's okay. Yes, but let me remind you that in 1967 and 1973, the peacekeeping troops were asked to leave the borders between Egypt and Israel, and that led to the biggest war in the region at that time, in 1967 and in 1973. Whenever the UNIFIL or the peacekeeping troops are asked to leave a country, a borderline, that means we are heading towards a big war in the region. I think the escalation will find its place in Lebanon very soon, very shortly, in the coming 2 weeks or 1 week or in few days, because a bad sign is asking the UNIFIL or shooting on the UNIFIL troops and the peacekeeping troops in the south of Lebanon. And today we have heard a lot of Israeli officials asking the UNIFIL what they are doing. Forces that they are assisting Hezbollah in the south. I feel, and I know, and I can analyze very well that the peacekeeping troops are keeping the stabilization in the south of Lebanon, the stability situation in the south of Lebanon and the time they leave, the situation will escalate.
How do you view, sir, the international response to the incidents involving the UN peacekeepers? And why does Israel insist on them leaving the borders?
The international response on the incident was very weak, extremely weak. We cannot give a speech on TV to state that we are against, not us, the international community, against what happened against the UNIFIL. They should act. They should go to the General Assembly or to the UN and ask for a clarification from Israel and accuse Israel of attacking the UNIFIL. And this is the least they can do. But go on TV and say that they are against is nothing, is not an action.
Okay, sir, why is Israel insisting on the UNIFIL leaving at this point, or the peacekeepers? Why are they insisting now?
Because they need to do an action against the south of Lebanon. They may do a terrestrial invasion, a terrestrial attack. They want to invade from the points of demarcation where the UN troops are localized, and this would be a clarification of or like a light on what Israel is planning to do in the coming few days.
So, sir, your assessment is that the United States and the United Kingdom and France, which are the main key players, are not making any action or enough action against Israel in this context?
They should take a decision or a decree in the UN just to stop Israel from executing what they are planning for. They should be more clear in their position, and they should take a quick position from what Israel is doing right now.
Sir, in what ways do the recent incidents involving UNIFIL violate international law? And what legal repercussions could Israel face as a result, sir? Your intake, please.
They should reinforce the position of the UNIFIL, ask the UNIFIL to stay in its position, do a quick meeting in the General Assembly or in the UN agencies, just to reinforce the position of the UNIFIL and ask them to stay in their position and clarify what Israel is doing in front of the international community.
Sir, how do you assess the situation in Lebanon in 10 seconds, as we have to wrap up this segment now? And how do you feel towards the Lebanese citizens in Lebanon at this point?
The situation is very critical. We are expecting more and more escalation.
It's no more it's no more a border war. It's a regional war, sir, right?
Sorry?
It's no more a border war. It's shifted to being a regional war now.
Who says no?
I'm asking you, sir.
The retaliation of Israel against Iran, and all will be decided after what the steps taken by Israel against Iran and the retaliation of Iran against the retaliation of Israel. But I think that the Lebanon war will be more tough, and it will escalate more in the coming few weeks and days.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rabia Al-Hobar, and for your valuable insights and for your intake and informative knowledge. I really thank you, sir, for being with us on the show. And we move on to NATO committing military support, training and defense funding despite ongoing war with Russia. And with Europe unable to meet Ukraine's increasing demand for weapons and ammunition, the European Union is stepping up by investigating $440 million into Ukraine's expanding defense industry. The Washington Post reported that this contribution marks a significant shift in the EU strategy in the face of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, highlighting the bloc's challenges in producing enough military supplies. The EU's funding is drawn from windfall profits of Russian assets frozen in Western countries, adding to the $190 million already provided by Denmark. This move underscores growing European support for Ukraine's defense needs as the country continues to bolster its military capabilities. Providing more analysis on the current developments on the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war, joining us from Kiev is Ivan Oss, an advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Policy Center. Good evening, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show.
Good evening. Thank you for invitation, and nice to be near to you and near to your audience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as war fatigue grows among Ukraine's Western allies, especially with the upcoming US elections and, of course, differing presidential candidates' positions on the war, how do you anticipate this will influence Ukraine's ability to secure continued financial and military support for both its defense industry and its broader war efforts?
Of course, we understand that the situation in the United States of America, the president election, probably is the most important internal Ukrainian political event that will happen in the 2024 year. So from the person of the winner of that election, we understand actually what support of Ukraine will be. If Kamala Harris wins, it means practically the same level of support that we have under the current administration. In case of Trump winning, it will be much larger variance. It could be either stop of support at all, or it could be even a larger support. Much will depend on the person who will be appointed as the person who, let's say it so, special, who will be special representative of the United States of America on Ukrainian case, as it was under first President Trump term, when Kurt Volker was responsible for that. Much will depend on this figure and, of course, of that decision. So Ukraine as whole world waiting for the 5th of November elections.
President Zelensky and of course, coming up presidential running for presidential elections in the United States, Donald Trump, sir.
You know, Ukraine needs a bipartisan support. That's why we don't want to repeat mistake that Ukraine made in 2016, when whole Ukrainian elite built a relationship with Hillary Clinton without any connection with Donald Trump. That's why meeting between President Zelensky and former President Donald Trump, and quite possible the next president, means that Ukraine demonstrate that we are ready to work with Republicans or with Democrats.
Or with the Democrats. Both sides you're ready to work with as Ukrainians.
Yes.
So this was the reason behind the meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's demonstrations that we are ready to that variant, and we are ready for variant of Kamala Harris win. So preparation for both variants of winning person who wins this race.
Okay, sir, the EU recently pledged $440 million to bolster Ukraine's arms industry. How do you view the effectiveness of this investment in enhancing Ukraine's self-sufficiency in defense, especially given Europe's own limitations in weapons production?
Of course, the fact that Europe became more engaged in the war of Russia against Ukraine, because if we return to 2022, Ukraine received large support from the United States of America, from the United Kingdom, but support from the European Union countries was, compared to them, not so strong. Now we see that Europe become more active player. European Union understand more serious threats directly to them. That's why they increase the level of their support. Yes, there are a lot of limitations, but it means that we should discuss it with our partners, that we should explain to them that they need Ukrainian victory, as actually the German Council of the Foreign Affairs at the end of 2023, in their report, they wrote a phrase that in case of Ukrainian loss, if Ukraine loses war, the war between Germany, because it was German Council, German structure who prepared this report, they thought that in case of Ukraine defeat, the war between Germany and Russia is a question of 6 or 10 years. So if they don't want to see this war, they need Ukraine to win. And if they need Ukraine to win, of course, they should support us without limit.
Sir, with Ukraine witnessing a war with Russia for over 2 years, how do Ukrainians feel at this point, sir?
Yes, of course, more than 2.5 years, and it's a hard period. Nevertheless, when some people said that Ukraine now ready for some ceasefire or staying where we are, Ukraine is not ready for that. Ukraine need, first of all, feeling of justice. We don't need peace without justice. First of all, we need justice, and that's why we still believe that quite possible that Ukraine could return all territory that we lost either from February 2022 or even from March 2014, when the war actually starts. So in military way, it will be hard to receive, but we are not only have a military war, it's an economic war. And the support of European Union and the United States of America, not only of them, all countries supporting Ukraine, gives to us, let's call it so, feeling of readiness for a long economic war, while Russia hardly have such supporters. And that's why I think that economy, especially in next year and especially in 2026, can play the key role in this war, not military, but economy. I try to emphasize that fact. And that's why we need not only military, but economic support of our partners just to win this war. And I think that it will be something like, let's call it so, deja vu from the end of the Soviet Union.
You mean deja vu, sir?
Yes. Yes, deja vu. Deja vu means...
yes, deja vu, what happened, and we remember what's happening.
Yes. In the end of the 80s, Saudi Arabia decided to change the tactic and increase production of oil. The same situation can happen now. If you know, since the 1st of December, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia planned to increase production of oil, and that means decreasing oil prices. For Russia economy, 73%, it means oil and gas export. If they failed in the prices for oil, for Russia, it will be absolutely the same situation that happened with USSR and that led to split of USSR. That's why quite possible that next year, in case of the oil prices decreased, and as Saudi Arabia said that it quite possible will be $50 per barrel, while Russia economy needs $69.5 per barrel. It means big economic problems because they will not receive as much money as they see.
Of course, sir. Sir, NATO has announced plans to coordinate military support and training for Ukraine, including a command center in Germany. How critical is this alliance-led effort in strengthening Ukraine's defense industry, and can it reduce Ukraine's dependence on external weapon supply, sir?
Of course, this idea about creating more serious technical support, I mean the meeting that will be in Ramstein military base, that becomes tradition since the beginning of this war. One part of that work is including Ukraine into a whole European system of production of weapons. And some, first of all, German companies, they opened manufacturing facility for production weapon in Ukraine. And as more weapon will be produced in Ukraine, as the less dependence will be from the other military sources, as Ukraine will produce more. And without the help of our European partners, I think that quite possible that Ukraine can organize production of some kind of weapons. And
when do you think, sir, this is imminent for Ukraine to produce weapons?
I think yes. I think that Ukraine now searching ways of increasing production of weapons. We know that several German companies start to at least announce opening of the facilities for production weapon in Ukraine. So quite possible that that I couldn't say that it seriously can change the situation, but at least it's make it better for Ukraine, because when you produce the weapon and immediately give it to the front line, it's of course better than when you are waiting when this weapon finally reach your country. Rheinmetall, actually, company, German military production company, they announced opening of their facility in Ukraine. Probably not only Rheinmetall, some other companies. I hear about French companies in Ukraine. So it means that Ukraine can produce weapons to themselves and immediately send it to the front.
Sir, given the tensions between Ukraine and Poland, especially concerning the EXO mission, of course, of the World War II second victims and the EU accession, sir, what do you think, sir, is the impact, and how do you think the impact of these strained relations will have on Ukraine's path to the EU membership, especially considering the current state of the war?
You know, it's a very good phrase. If you don't remind history, yes, you don't have heart. If you live by your history,
no, sir, we have heart, and our hearts are with you all.
Yes, thank you.
Go on, sir.
Oh, yes. So if you don't remind history, you don't have heart. If you live by history, you don't have your head. It means that every neighbor has problems in the history, and we understand that some of the stories happened during Second World War and after. But now I think that Ukraine should go towards Poland, and Poland so go towards Ukraine. So Ukraine should give a green light to exhumation that Poland asked us. Of course, Poland so should make some steps, because some tragedies happened in our territories, some tragedies happened in the Polish territory with Ukrainians. So I think that Ukraine need, you know, in France, in Paris, there is such a church that Montmartre about victims of all French internal wars, revolutionary wars. And I think that Sacred Care, we need Ukrainian Sacred Care dedicated to victims from both Poland and Ukrainian side in the history, saying that we remember about them, but we should go into the future together. And
okay, sir, because we're running out of time, and before I leave, I just want to ask you a question. Sir, don't you feel like after all this war and all what Ukraine is going through, don't you feel like you need a ceasefire or state of negotiation that could resolve this war as soon as possible to end these atrocities and genocides that are taking place in both countries?
You know, we analyzed budget of Russia. Russia tried to spend more money on war. That's why for them it will be very hard to stop the war. As for Ukraine, as I said, any ceasefire now will create enormous quantity of questions inside society about justice.
So you don't see a ceasefire imminent, sir?
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't see the window for ceasefire in the nearest period.
Unfortunately, sir, yes. We, of course, thank you very much for your informative knowledge and your intake, Ivan Oss, an advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Policy Center, for joining us today and for your thoughtful insights and analysis, sir. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has reported that Russian forces attempted to dislodge Ukrainian troops and positions in the Kursk border region, but affirmed that Kiev forces are maintaining their lines. Russia's defense ministry has announced that its troops had recaptured 2 villages in the Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces had launched a significant incursion in August. Russia has announced that its forces have launched extensive attacks on Ukraine's energy facilities. Meanwhile, Ukraine has reported successfully repelling a Russian assault amid fierce frontline battles. The Russian Defense Ministry stated its forces targeted enemy positions, arms storage sites and energy facilities linked to Ukrainian military operations. Additionally, the ministry noted ongoing responses to Ukraine's incursions in the Kursk region. And as the 2024 U.S. elections approach, candidates are ramping up their campaigns in a tight race, while the nation faces unprecedented challenges with Hurricane Milton's aftermath in Florida. We'll delve into the latest campaign strategies and explore the federal and state response to the disaster.
We will build what I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it.
As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
According to The Guardian, the headline reads, "How a Harris win in U.S. election could depend on Democrats in London." It highlights how the efforts of Democrats abroad in the UK, with around 200,000 Americans living there, could play a crucial role in shaping the election outcome. Campaigners are working tightly to register voters, especially in key swing states like Pennsylvania, and their influence could be pivotal, as we saw with the overseas vote in 2020. With registrations deadlines fast approaching, this community mobilization is more important than ever. And for more analysis, we are joined by Richard Schimmer, former ambassador of the United States from Washington. Good evening, sir.
Hello.
Sir, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show. We've seen a surge in campaign activity, especially from Donald Trump, sir, with his focus on battleground states like Pennsylvania. How much do you think his strategy is influencing voter sentiment in these key regions at this point?
Well, right now, it appears that the race is essentially tied. Both
Yes.
Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have the same percentage of voters. So both of them are seeking to mobilize their supporters through what they call ground operations, ways of getting people to actually go vote. And this is focused primarily in what are 7 swing states, the ones that will certainly determine the outcome of the election. So both candidates, I think, are very active in those swing states and will be there for the next 3 weeks or so until the election.
Sir, Kamala Harris's campaign has been slightly more reserved with fewer events compared to Trump, as of course Trump leads with 21 events in September. Do you think her strategic focus on healthcare, education is enough to shift the narrative in her favor, especially with the competition intensifying?
Well, I think Kamala Harris has changed her tactic. At present, what she's doing is doing many more media appearances rather than rallies. And so she's been on a number of shows which have different demographics, young people, older people, women. And so she's trying to make herself
Sorry to interrupt
visible.
you, but is this not normal for a for a person running for presidential election to increase her appearances?
Well, it is normal, but the difference is that former President Trump is only going on very limited media outlets, ones that are very favorable to him, whereas Kamala Harris, I think, is trying to get a broader exposure to potential new voters. So I think that's why you're seeing her more focused on the media, while Trump seems to be more focused on rallies of his current supporters.
Shifting our attention to Hurricane Milton's aftermath, sir. Florida is grappling with significant challenges. How might this disaster impact voter turnout and, of course, the leadership and what they see and how they see it, especially with the governor and President Joe Biden roles in the recovery efforts, of course, taking into consideration Biden's visit tonight to or on Sunday to the site of the hurricane?
Well, we've seen a number of reports about how aid is or is not reaching the victims of these two hurricanes. I think in the end, it will be seen that the federal government did respond appropriately and support the victims. It's been a tragedy in both Florida and North Carolina. North Carolina is a swing state, so I think it will be politically important there. But I think it will be seen that the federal government did do what it should have been doing. And I think that will ultimately be a positive for Kamala Harris.
Okay, sir, in 10 seconds, because we have to wrap up this episode. Sir, Kamala Harris made a statement saying that she already worked on her health care, and she admitted her health care, whereas Donald Trump is always lying and he did not do this. What's your intake on this, sir?
Well, it'll be interesting to see how people react. But yes, Kamala Harris has released a complete health report showing that she is in very good health. And Donald Trump refuses to release any information.
Why does he refuse, sir?
Well, I think there's things there that he doesn't want people to be aware of. He is 78 years old, and so I think that's a factor in people's considerations. So I think that's why he's not willing to release his information.
How do you read, sir, her statement?
Well, I think it's just she wanted to document that she is in very good health, just in case anybody has any questions about that, and also to contrast her situation at age 59 in good health with Donald Trump at age 78 with some health questions.
Okay, sir, of course, as the race is very tight and we're waiting to witness the new president of the United States. Thank you for your insights, sir, as the campaign, progress and recovery continues in Florida. The intersection of politics and crisis response will undoubtedly shape the final stretch of the 2024 elections. Stay tuned for more updates. That's all for today's episode of In Focus. From the escalating conflict in Lebanon to the close U.S. election and the evolving debate on Palestinian statehood, the world remains in constant flux. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time.